Average Woodsman here, back with another video. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different than I usually do. I'm going to review a pre-made survival kit. Full disclosure, I did not purchase this. This was gifted to me by someone that I know to do a review on. I'm generally not a big fan of these pre-made survival kits. They tend to be filled with items that are very gimmicky. A lot of them tend to have very cheap items because they're trying to keep the cost down, and they tend to not have the correct items for an actual survival situation. So like this one is specifically geared toward wilderness survival, but when I looked at the list of things on Amazon, there were a lot of things in there that just would not be something that I would personally pick to put in a wilderness survival kit. So let's go ahead and get into it. I have not opened this at all. This is a 100% field review, unboxing / field review of this. The only thing I did was take the packaging off. Like I stated previously, this is supposed to be geared toward wilderness survival. There are a lot of items that I personally would not want in here, but we're going to go through them. So let's take out these instructions. Let's see what the instructions say. So it basically goes over, these are toolbox instructions, so I'm assuming it's going over the items that are in the survival kit. Doesn't really have actual instructions or anything like that. You know, a lot of the pre-made survival kits, they'll have, you know, like a little tiny piece of paper that'll give like basic signaling or something along those lines. This does not have it. This is just basically what's in the actual box. So first off, we have a knife. Now, it seems to be a spring-assisted knife. It does not feel very sharp, but we'll test that. It has serrated edge. I cannot stand serrated edge knife, especially when you're talking about in the woods. These are basically completely useless when you're out here. This is the edge when you're working and carving. This is the edge that you use the most. You don't really use this as much, so this being serrated is almost completely useless in the wilderness. We have an emergency space blanket. Obviously, you know, there's a million uses for something like this. I'm assuming this seems like one of the really thin Mylar blankets, but for one use, they're generally not terrible. This has some type of dummy cord. I can already tell you by grabbing this is not real 550 cord. A bottle hanger, completely useless. I don't know why you would waste space in a survival kit where you're already limited. I mean, this is all the space you get, and then they're putting a bottle hanger for a plastic bottle. It makes no sense. You have two carabiners. These are not rated these are not climbing rated, so I would not use these. I guess you could attach gear to these if you wanted to attach them to the back of a pack or something like that, if you had a pack with MOLLE on it. Other than that, not super useful and not something I would personally put in a wilderness survival kit. One of these hand saws, I personally don't like these. There are a few exceptions of decent ones, but for the most part, these things are not very good and they're not very useful. And every one I've ever used, these always break every single time. A spork with some sort of something on the hand. Oh, so this is a knife blade. Why you would put a knife blade on the handle of a eating utensil, I'm not exactly sure. I guess they're trying to make this more multifunctional. Not a fan of this already. This looks like it's a whistle. One of the very gimmicky paracord bracelets. This looks like the same type of cordage that this is. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is actual paracord. I'm not sure. You have a small ferro rod and a striker. It had a little cover over it. This is going to be way too thin, so this will generally break. in my experience, when you have the really thin ferro rods like this, the actual rod itself will break while you're striking with it. Also, every single one of these, with the handles that are attached to them, the handles almost always break off under hard use. It does come with a little striker. I don't personally use these. I use the spine of my knife, plus you can use your multi-tool. But yeah, I mean, it's good that they put a ferro rod in here, some way to make fire. But I don't actually see any tender. So if you're not knowledgeable on the local flora and fauna, you're not going to know what kind of natural tender to use with this ferro rod. So I would recommend, if you did buy something like this, the very first thing that you put in here is some sort of man-made tender. Once again, another item that I don't know why you would put in a supposed wilderness survival kit. This is a flathead and a Phillips screwdriver. Why you would put these in a wilderness survival kit, I don't know. You're not going to be out here using these ever. Looks like another whistle. A very cheap flashlight with no batteries. A tactical pen. Once again, why would you put something like this in a wilderness survival kit? And there's not even a way, there's nothing to even write notes on. They're not even giving you any type of a write in the rain notepad to take notes. And you don't, this is just so big and bulky. I don't personally understand why they would put something like this in a wilderness survival kit. There's a random, looks like grub. Let's see what this is. This is another thing that they seem to put in every one of these Chinese pre-made survival kits. One of these little card things that have a bunch of tools on them. None of these really useful out in the woods. And then a compass. A very, very, very quick before I start testing these, because I am going to test this gear. I'm going to take out all the things that are completely useless, gimmicky, all the things that you're just not going to use out here in the woods. When you're out in the field, you don't need something like this. This is completely useless. This is just unsafe. I'm sorry. Why in the world would you ever put a blade on the handle of an eating utensil? So this is not going to be something I ever use. Just buy a regular spork. This, you can always use cordage. This, more cordage. The ferro rod, obviously. These carabiners, I guess, you could use them to attach something to your pack, I guess, if you have a backpack. This doesn't come with anything besides this small box. Alright, so I'm just attached a couple toggles to this to make it a little bit easier to use this little saw, just with a Prusik loop. We'll see how it works. I don't know if this dummy cord is even going to work because it's just so cheap. We'll see what happens. They bind up really easy, and if this thing is so bent and look how bent this is. It's already all bent up and bound inside there. These things are just complete junk. Just complete junk. With the exception of a few of them that I've seen on the market and used, these little cheap ones like this, complete junk. Alright, so I'm going to use this knife just to take a small piece of this wax myrtle, and I don't want to hurt it, I don't want to kill it. Wax myrtle is so useful out in the woods that I'm just going to take a small piece of this just for carving. And yes, wax myrtle is actually a pretty decent plant to use for carving. And as you can see, it's very soft, so even this, which is a very, very dull knife, worked. I'm gonna have to use the portion of Like I said, I'm not a big fan of serrated. I'm just going to use the serrated just to beaver chew around here, because it's really the only part of this knife that's sharp. This part is so dull. I'm going to beaver chew around, and then there we go. We got a small piece to cut. Right. So this was not what I thought was going to happen. That little bit of testing, that is all I've done with this knife. I have not done anything else besides those few little cuts that I just showed, and the mechanism is already broken. I can't close this knife. It has pushed back behind right there. It's been pushed back, and I cannot close this knife now. I cannot close it. I cannot close this knife. This is now, I guess, a fixed blade, so with no sheath. This is why it's so unbelievably important. And if you don't take anything else from this video, buy quality gear. Do not buy cheap Chinese kits, cheap Chinese gear off of Amazon, off of eBay, any of those websites. Do not buy cheap Chinese gear, because this is now a fixed blade knife that has an insane amount of wobble in the blade itself and has no sheath. This is extremely dangerous. There's no way to carry this safely now, and I haven't even started carving with it. All I've done is just remove this small piece of wax myrtle. This is not a hard wood. I didn't do any batoning with this or anything like that, and I was not expecting it to be this bad, honestly. So, if you take anything from this video, do not buy cheap Chinese junk. So I did cheat. I actually used my Silky Saw to cut a piece of fat wood here. Not the best fat wood I've ever found, but this review is taking a lot longer than I thought it was going to, and I'm kind of running out of time. So I went ahead and cut a piece. We're going to do something I would not generally do with a fixed blade knife, but this is the only blade they give you. Well, technically they do give you that spork with the knife handle, but this is the main tool, and now that it won't close because the lock is broken, I'm going to treat this as a fixed blade knife, because essentially that's what it is. So I'm going to baton with it. Once again, would not usually do this, but this thing has given me no choice. So we'll see what, well, you know what, we'll actually see what happens here. And oh, it looks like we may have gotten it to work now. We may have fixed, no, we did not. It is definitely still broken. Oh wait, no, it is completely broken. Now it'll close, but it won't close all the way because the mechanism is so far to the wrong side of the blade that it is completely broken. So this thing is done for. Alright, so my fault. I did not get any of this on film. I just got this, took this little fat wood with the handle of this and got a small fire going using the ferro rod with a couple of strikes. It was pretty easy. I did kind of bend this in the process. This thing is extremely dull, but this knife is completely unsafe to use, as you can see. So I refuse to use that. I'm going to try this one more time. I have the camera rolling this time, so yeah, we'll see. It's just really hard with this knife because it's so dull and the handle is so uncomfortable because, I mean, literally the handle is a spork. But it's better than the other knife because the other knife is literally dangerous. So we'll see if I can get just enough fat wood. Like I said, I already did this once. For some reason, I did not have the camera rolling, so that was totally my fault. I cannot tell you how uncomfortable it is to hold this in your hand and then doing thumb assists. This top portion is digging into my hand. I don't know why they put this here, because it's not an actual saw blade. I don't know what it, maybe for looks, I'm not exactly sure. striker. Just want to do a quick demonstration on the difference between this little striker and my belt knife, the spine on my knife. This little tiny ferro rod, while it is inadequate, it is not, it's still useful. So here's what I'm getting with this little striker. Now watch when I use the spine of my knife. It's not even comparable. So while a ferro rod, carrying a ferro rod is very important, make sure you have a good way. Make sure that you have a good way to strike it. Otherwise, you're going to get in a situation where you're going to struggle to get enough molting material off this to light tinder. So I'm not going to bust out this little emergency space blanket because this is not really meant to be a shelter item. It's more generally they're meant to be wrapped around you to prevent hypothermia. You can make something called a super shelter, but that is way too complex, and you need other items, you need different types of material to do that, and I'm not doing that in this video. So want to carry an actual shelter item, carry something like a military poncho, or they make space blankets that are more durable, that actually have tie-outs in them, grommets, that you can create into an actual shelter. So like an A-frame, a lean-to, any of those types of shelters, the traditional shelters that you would create in the woods that you can use to protect you from the environment. And they also have, one side of it has Mylar on it, so it can reflect heat back towards you, or even reflect heat away in a really hot environment. This is really not that type of item. This is like I said, more for being wrapped around you to help prevent hypothermia. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a small game trail that goes right in here. I was thinking with the cordage they gave, I could do just a really quick stationary snare. I'm not going to do a spring snare because of the problem that this kit has. You know, the main one of arguably the main problem with this kit is they don't give you any decent cutting tools. And when you create a snare, a spring snare, you need to create components using your cutting tool, and you have to have basic knife skills. This one you don't really need that, so I was thinking just using this little bit of dummy cord that it comes with, or tether cord. I don't know what this is. It's not actual paracord. Paracord would obviously be better because it has the inner strands. It has a higher breaking strength. It's just, this kind of cordage is better than nothing, but not really good. You're going to want to carry bank line, actual bank line, Tard Mariner bank line, or carry paracord. Now, you don't want to have to rely on this, but in an emergency it will work. Alright, so there's the snare. The animal comes walking in here, head goes through there, slip knots it, and it's captured. Alright, so that's kind of it. Honestly, I tested basically what I could test. The vast majority of the items were not really wilderness survival items. You know, they really weren't something I would personally carry in an emergency kit when you're in the backwoods. I guess a couple of the items, like the tactical pen or that little tool card, I guess you could carry with you EDC if you wanted to. I personally wouldn't carry those items in the backcountry. Out here in the woods, they're not really useful. And when you're talking about limited weight and space, you don't want to carry too many items, especially items you're not going to use. And you're going to basically just have the items that are either on your person or in your bag. So why carry things that you're never going to use while you're in the woods? Also, the items were just extremely low quality, and I get it. It's like a $30 kit, so they're not going to be really high quality. The problem is that this is being sold as a survival kit, an emergency kit for when you're out in the woods. And when something is marketed like that, you know, it should actually be useful, and you should be able to rely on the items. As you can see in this video, I would not rely on any of these items. I guess you could use probably the most useful of all the items that I tested is probably the actual ferro rod. But you could buy, like I think I stated this earlier, you could buy a Mora, like a Mora Bushcraft Black or a Mora Companion or something like that, and just a Light My Fire ferro rod or an Oberlieben ferro rod, and you would be far better off than buying this kit, honestly. It's just, it's just plain and simple. It's just Chinese crap that I would not trust my life on, and I'm kind of glad that I did this video on it, because on Amazon, unbelievably, the kit has over 1,000 reviews and it's something like 4.6 stars. So more than likely these are either paid reviews or they are people who buy this kit and then put it in their closet or in their truck or in their car, and it's never being used, because anyone who would use this gear and go out and test this gear would realize right away that it's not only is it not useful, it is complete junk that could, I guess, potentially in a real emergency situation get you killed. So hard fail on my part, the thumbs down, and I would not recommend this kit at all. It's far better for you to just buy once, cry once, build your own kit, do the research. There are a million videos on YouTube, there are a million articles, there are forums. There's just so many resources out there on how to build bug out bags, how to build survival kits, how to build wilderness survival kits, how to build wilderness emergency kits. There are EDC videos. There are a million videos out there on how to build a kit specifically for an emergency. And instead of buying something like this and wasting your money, even if you have to save up the money and spend it on higher quality gear that will actually save your life in a true emergency if that ever happens. Anyway, like, subscribe, share with your friends and family. Remember, be safe, stay dangerous, and I will catch you on the next one.